Welcome to the Culture and Arts Podcast, episode 22. You hear the intro music there that I'd planned on using was Taylor Swift's, I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 22. Today I'm feeling kind of 30. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling about 38.
About 38? All right. So I had my 30th birthday just a few days ago, actually, on the 10th. So 7 days ago at this point. And I went out last night in an act of rebellion against my 30s and tried to act like I was in my 20s and quickly realized that, damn it, I'm 30.
Yep.
And it's just, I've just got to, I can't beat Father Time. I can't act like that anymore.
Yeah. Father Time has won a lot of battles over the years.
Yes, and I don't think that I'm the exception to the rule. So we'll leave that to Keith Richards.
Yes.
So, man, how have you been? It's been quite a while. We had the holidays, and we recorded an episode, and then that episode didn't pan out because it was just, I don't know if it was good or, I don't know. I never got around to editing it, and it was topical, so by the time, it just, I don't know. There was no way it was going to air and make any sort of sense, and people probably think that this podcast is now defunct.
Yeah, well, I remember in the last one we talked about Thanksgiving, so it wouldn't make much sense to post it in January.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, no, that wouldn't make a whole lot of sense.
We'll just kind of let that one go.
So there's another missing episode to go along with the other missing episode. There's now two missing episodes, so we would be on episode 24 today.
Right.
Right, if it wasn't for those. One time it was technical issues. Last time it was just a lot of stop and start because my daughter was involved and she was feeling really talkative that day, but it was about nothing that we were supposed to be discussing on the podcast.
Right.
So, anyway.
If I can make a comment about Keith Richards, though.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, I actually saw a rerun of WKRP in Cincinnati.
Yeah.
From the 70s. And they actually made a joke then about how old Keith Richards was and how it's a miracle he's still alive.
Mm-hmm.
In the 70s, they made that joke.
Yeah, I mean, he's had so many blood transfusions at this point. Like, I don't know if he has any of his own blood left.
It makes you wonder.
He's pretty much a vampire, right?
I would think so.
Man. Keith Richards, I don't know how you do it, man, but live long and prosper, in case you hadn't been doing so already. So what do you got this week?
Well, I found a story about John Bon Jovi. And
it's my life.
And this is from a website called Cult of Mac, so I'm assuming this is for lovers of, like, Apple products. And the quote says, Bon Jovi says Steve Jobs is personally responsible for killing music.
What?
And let me read you the whole quote here. And Bon Jovi's quote is, "Kids today have missed the whole experience of putting the headphones on, turning it up to 10, holding the jacket, closing their eyes, and getting lost in an album. And the beauty of taking your allowance money and making a decision based on the jacket, not knowing what the record sounded like, and looking at a couple of still pictures and imagining it. God, it was a magical, magical time. I hate to sound like an old man now, but I am, and you mark my words, in a generation from now, people are going to say, what happened? Steve Jobs is personally responsible for killing the music business."
So, man, there's conflicting things in there for me. All right, because on the one hand, he's got a point. Because I remember laying around, listening to music, like start to finish. There's very few albums anymore that you can start to finish, listen to, and do that multiple times.
Right.
I remember laying in my bed and just like listening to an album all the way through. And now it's very piecemeal. It's very, one song here, one song there. I really don't listen to anything unless it's on shuffle.
Right.
It's one artist to the next, one song to the next, and you don't get the same experience.
Right.
However, when Napster became a problem and LimeWire and all these other, illegal downloading, music pirating services, the music industry was starting to die anyway. Because all of a sudden people were downloading these records, and Apple creating iTunes, creating the iPod was like, to me, Steve Jobs saved the record industry from itself at that point because people weren't interested in the record sleeve at that point. They were just like, I want the music and I want it for free. And so they were getting it online because they had access to it.
That's actually a great point. You know, except for that very last sentence, I agree with a lot of what he said.
Yeah.
You know, because, you know, as a kid, I had some records, and I always open it up, and you'd listen to it. You'd read along as you listen to it, and then the same with cassettes, and the same with CDs. You'd open the liner notes and just listen along. And I've always just enjoyed having something I could physically hold when I have music.
Yeah.
But I don't. But I agree with what you're kind of saying. It's like, you know, Steve Jobs with iTunes kind of legitimized all the online sales, and to a point where that's factored into to record sales now.
Yeah, because, you know, he was basically saying, all right, well, this is how kids are going to consume music. This is how people want to consume music at this point, and we can see that because they're downloading it. So we're going to find a way to monetize that. So because it's all about instant gratification, you know. I don't want to have to wait to get time during my work week or whatever to drive to Best Buy and pick up the new record that I want to buy. So, and I still use the word record, even though it's kind of a dated word.
I mean,
I don't buy vinyl.
You can still win Record of the Year at the Grammys. So
True. And so I get on iTunes, you know, and I put in my credit card information, which is already saved, and then I buy that record. My alternative is to get on the Pirate Bay and to download it illegally. You know, so it's like if you're someone who's in the music industry, if you work for Virgin Records or Interscope or whatever, do you want me to go to iTunes and click the button and download it for $8.99, or do you want me to get on the Pirate Bay and download it for free? I mean, iTunes is a no-brainer because I'm not going to make it over to Best Buy and pick up the record. And in fact, there's probably a process of I'm going to listen to it on Spotify or something first, you know, to even see if it's worth spending the $7.99, $8.99. If you look at it the right way, it's like, make good music, man. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because I have access to your music now to find out whether or not it's good. And if it's good, it's worth spending the money on. And if it sucks, then I don't got to spend my money on it. So it's like you're now challenged with, as a record exec, like not only did you have to find something that's marketable, but you have to make sure that the music on said album is more than, you know, something that I would just download. I don't know.
Right.
It's got to be something that's worth spending money on.
And the author of the article did make a good point that Steve Jobs hasn't done anything worse to the music industry than most of John Bon Jovi's music has. But
it's funny. I mean, he's had some iconic tunes, right?
Oh yeah.
But yeah, to say that Steve Jobs killed the music industry, I don't know. I think that if anything, he probably saved it, and that would be equivalent to me saying John Bon Jovi killed the film industry, you know, because he made what was the terrible movie, Vampires, Los Muertos.
Yeah, something like that.
John Carpenter's sequel to Vampires. I don't know who came up with that idea. Like we'll make a sequel to Vampires, but we'll call it Vampires Los Muertos. So it's essentially like the dead.
I will say this in defense of John Bon Jovi. My favorite episode of American Idol was the one where they did Bon Jovi songs, and he was mentoring the contestants.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Yeah.
That's where Blake Lewis,
I think,
that his name?
I think
he did
so.
the You Give Love a Bad Name, and he beatboxed in the middle of it.
Yeah, and Mandisa did one of their power ballads. There wasn't like a huge hit for him, but she tore it up.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a great episode.
Yeah. Back when Idol still had some steam behind it.
Yeah.
So sorry, John. If you happen to listen to the Culture and Arts podcast some way, somehow, you have culturally nailed something that's probably a systemic problem with people these days. Like, we're not listening to music the same way that we used to listen to music, but at the end of the day, Steve Jobs is probably not to blame, and if anything, he's saved more careers.
I would say maybe his what was the word I was looking for? Maybe his sentiment was right, but his conclusion was wrong.
Right. Yeah.
I think that's a fair way to put it.
Yep. And that seems that happens a lot. Like people create like an argument, and they're like, looking for how do we fix the problem or who do I point the finger at, and they just end up on the wrong person or the wrong, people. But I do miss the day, man. I remember Bone Thugs and Harmony's East 1999 Eternal album came out, and there was all these stories about how, the Crossroads video was like telling a story about how Bone Thugs had like sold their souls to the devil to be these amazing rappers, and as a 7 or 8 year old boy, like that was like, oh, there was like all this mystique behind it, and in the CD there were these like little skits that were almost kind of like demonic in their presentation and scary. It was like listening to a scary movie. And then inside the record, when you opened it up, there was the record sleeve where they're standing outside the gates of hell, and the gates of hell just kind of look like Compton or something, but there's like skulls and stuff laying outside. But then when you looked even closer, like behind, you'd take the CD out, and there's the plastic that holds the CD in. Like on the inside liner of where there's a hinge, there was like secret messages and stuff that were like written backwards. You'd have to like stick it in a mirror in order to see all these little. So there was Easter eggs inside this album that you had to like find, and they all kind of fed that mystique and that scariness about what this album is and who this rap group was. And like, so you won't really ever get to experience anything like that now, because even if you download an album on iTunes and you get the digital copy of what the record sleeve would have looked like, how many people actually look at them now?
Right.
If you want to look up lyrics, you don't go to the record sleeve anymore. You just Google what the lyrics are.
Yeah.
And so those things are almost pointless. And it used to be kind of cool to see, because it was like an overall presentation or an overall theme that each record had this like feel to it, not just musically, but visually too.
Yeah. One cool story that popped in my head is the band Toad the Wet Sprocket.
Yeah.
One of their I think the very last CD they did was, in the liner notes, it said that we can't really call this a greatest hits because we never really had huge hits, but this is kind of the...
They had like 2, right?
Yeah, it's kind of the songs that we felt like summed up what they wanted to do as a band. And one of the new songs on it was actually written and recorded a couple days after they had broken up, which I just thought it was a cool story that you might not get now.
They broke up and they wrote a song after they broke up?
Or at least recorded it. They may not have written it, but...
Oh, okay.
So,
but then that means they weren't actually broken up until after they recorded that song.
I guess if you want to be technical.
Yeah, that's neat though.
Yeah.
I liked Toad and the Wet Sprocket.
I was a huge fan of theirs.
Yeah, they were one of those like cool '90s bands that like when you think of like '90s music, like at least their 2 songs that were on the radio. That's what you think about,
right? They were one of those bands that's like, man, I hope they hit it big someday, and they never really did. But
right. Did you see something recently about? It was either Liam or Noel Gallagher from the band Oasis. Now that we're on '90s bands,
right?
He, Wembley Stadium is like this iconic, venue in the UK, and I guess Ed Sheeran, who's like a really popular artist right now, he's from the UK. Like he has sold this stadium out multiple times, and it's like an 80,000 seat.
Oh
venue.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah, and so this Gallagher brother, and I forget which one it was. They've always been angry, drunken.
They're always
guys.
Fighting each other.
Yeah, yeah. I remember the celebrity death match where they like fought each other in claymation. But he was basically saying like, I don't want to live in this world where Ed Sheeran's selling out Wembley Stadium and 80,000 people, or what he said was that what kind of world are we living in? And Ed Sheeran responded to him on Twitter like, I'm enjoying this world very much. But yeah, man, the music industry has changed in a lot of ways, and in a lot of ways it's really the same.
Right.
We were driving yesterday, and I heard One Direction come on the radio, and I was like, man, like they've had a lot of hits now. They've had at least like 5 hit singles on the radio, and if you think about New Kids on the Block, and then you fast forward to now with One Direction,
Right.
and you consider all of the boy bands in between. There was like the boy band era in the 90s, but if you think about it, boy bands are still kind of kicking butt on the radio as far as like pop mainstream music goes. So in a lot of ways, that's the same as it was, back in the Hangin' Tough days.
Yeah, I kind of have a feeling though that the window for One Direction is closing very soon.
You think so?
I think so, because they've grown up a lot, and like one of them's playing guitar now in their songs, and it looked like one of them had some tattoos.
Yeah.
And once they kind of grow up too much, it kind of means their fans have grown up a little bit.
Right.
The window closes very fast on them.
But then what's going to happen is, 5 years down the road, there's just going to be another one.
So, yeah.
And that's really the argument I'm making, I guess, is that there's like certain kinds of acts that are always present.
Yeah,
from generation to generation.
They're kind of like Hydra, cut off one head and two more will appear.
Yes.
It was
well said.
And then once they break up, they'll all kind of hang on the fringe of Hollywood and have their individual solo careers that, for the most part, never amount to much.
Yeah.
But other than Justin Timberlake, he's doing pretty good things. But
Mickey and I were talking about that the other day. I always thought that J.C. Chasez would have been like the star of that group. Like he had like the most soulful vocals of the five or so people that were in that group, and he put out like one solo album. It didn't do too well, and then there was Justin Timberlake, and he's the biggest star on the planet.
Yeah.
The anniversary of Nipplegate is approaching quickly. Speaking of Justin, Super Bowl Sunday is coming up shortly. And who do we have? We have Katy Perry.
Katy Perry this year.
Now, I saw something yesterday that said John Legend, and there was another one that was also going to be performing.
I think John Legend is going to sing America the Beautiful, and then Idina Menzel.
Yeah, there you go.
She's going to sing the national anthem. But I think I also heard that Lenny Kravitz is going to be at halftime with Katy Perry.
That's kind of cool.
That's kind of cool.
Lenny Kravitz anymore.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome. Man, there's lots of... What I do love about music nowadays is I feel like they cross genre a lot more. Whereas like back in the day, if you were a rapper, you were a rapper. If you were a pop singer, you were a pop singer. And now it's like people just make music together. Like Kanye and Paul McCartney recently collaborating.
Which is fascinating.
Yeah. But I mean, and that's, we've had Jay-Z and U2. We've had... now we have Katy Perry and Lenny Kravitz. It's like, I don't know, it just doesn't matter anymore what kind of box people try to put you in. Like, you can always jump boxes and make something happen.
There was a really cool video of Lenny Kravitz circulating Facebook a while ago. There was like a street choir performing one of his songs, and he just happened to walk by and hear it. So he started performing with them. And I just thought it was like the coolest thing ever.
Where was it at?
It was either in Disney or New Orleans or something like that.
He just saw them.
It was like it almost looked like a church choir singing on the street, and they were singing "Fly Away," which is just an awesome song.
Yeah.
And so he sees them, and at first he just kind of like clapping and sing, and then he starts singing and playing drums with them. It's just such a cool thing to do.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. So we could talk about music forever. But yeah, it's, I guess, moral of the story, wrapping up music for time's sake. Music industry's changed, same in a lot of ways. Common themes throughout time, and Steve Jobs didn't kill the music industry. That's my summary.
Yeah, that's a fair summary.
Okay. What else have you got for us this week?
This has kind of been a hot story on the internet. I'm going to try to pronounce this guy's name. It's Akhtar Zaman. He founded a website called Skiplagged that shows travelers how to get cheaper flights.
Okay.
And he's actually being sued now. Let me make sure I get the right airlines. He's being sued by United Airlines and Orbitz.
In Orbitz, okay.
Yes.
Because so a website that sells tickets and an airline.
Right. And basically, he's basically got travel. He doesn't sell tickets. He just kind of has tips on how to fly for cheap. And one of his tips involves what is called hidden rights or hidden city routes.
Okay.
And basically what his tip is, if you're flying somewhere, don't find a direct flight to that location. Find a flight somewhere else that has a layover in the city you want to go to.
Mm-hmm.
And then just don't get on the second flight. And apparently that can save you up to 80%.
Wow.
And he does point out that you can only have carry-ons if you do it that way, because your luggage is going to keep on going to the other city. And he's being sued by United and Orbitz, and they're claiming $75,000 in damages.
How'd they come up with that number?
That's a good question. What's interesting, though, is he has a Kickstarter campaign going to fund his legal battle. And let me find the exact amount that he's raised so far.
Is it going to be a settlement costs that everybody fronts the money for?
I would think so. My phone's freezing up. I think he raised 65. Yeah, so far his GoFundMe account actually has collected about $65,000.
Wow.
And they're claiming $75 in damages. So
wow. Yeah, so he's almost there.
Yeah,
he'll be all right. $75,000 is, to me, that's kind of random. I wonder if they sat around and somehow computed how many people had taken advantage of the system that way or something. But yeah, I mean, I think it's solid advice, and now it's out there. So it's well, what systems are the airlines going to put in place to make sure that that's not happening?
Right, and it's kind of strange how airlines come up with their prices anyway. Because I know when my brother went to Florida a few years ago, it was actually cheaper for him to get a flight going to Florida with a layover in somewhere else than to get a direct flight there. And it just, because if I remember right, he had to go to Indy, fly to Detroit, and then fly to Florida. And he was like, well, why can't I just drive to Detroit and fly down to Florida?
Yeah.
Which logically would be cheaper, but that's not the case.
Yeah, I think the airplane tickets are just, as a rule of thumb, pretty overpriced.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know why. I mean, is it because of the TSA? It's they've got all these systems that are mandated upon them by, the government, and so they have to pay more out, and so they've got to increase the prices.
It's that, and then every time fuel prices go up,
the
ticket prices go up.
But fuel prices are down pretty significantly right now.
Right,
but I haven't looked. Are plane tickets down right now?
I can't imagine they are.
Yeah.
But I guess what bothers me more than anything is if they're going to go after this guy and his website, are they going to go after every site that has tips for, because a lot of sites will tell you, by, at certain times of the year you can get better rates. There's all kinds of sites out there that are going to have travel tips for you.
Yeah.
Are you going to have to go after every single one of them?
Look out, travel bloggers. Poor guys. Well, I am going to continue to just drive places. There was a time, flying is preferred, right? But driving is just cheaper, depending on where you're going. We're going to take a trip down to Florida in April. And to go down there for 1 week, it's to buy tickets, plane tickets, and then rent a car, it would be so much more expensive than to just drive down there, especially with gas prices stay where they're at right now.
Right.
Because you end up spending, $200 round trip per person. Whereas we could, on fuel, get down there for $200 for the whole trip, know? Sorry, airlines. Plus, their stuff keeps crashing.
Yeah.
It's in the news all the time now. The days of Superman saying that, statistically speaking, it's still the safest way to travel, I don't know anymore. There's more cars than there are airplanes, so you have a bigger sample, but I'll never fly anywhere in and about Asia.
No.
Because there's a crash all the time. There was the Malaysian flight, and then there was the flight from Lost, and and now what is the one that crashed just a couple of weeks ago? It was somewhere out there too.
I think that was another.
It was Air Asia or
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that most recent one. My niece just took a missions trip to Costa Rica, The day she flew down there was the day that plane went missing.
Great.
So you just hear that.
That wasn't scary.
You hear that headline on the news: a plane went missing, and your heart stops for a second until you hear it was Asia.
Yeah, it's always the Asian flights.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking that North Korea did something to them. Everything is being blamed on North Korea now. Like I just think they are the new Canada. Instead of blame Canada, now it's blame North Korea.
North Korea.
Yeah. So here we are wrapping up the 22nd episode of the Culture and Arts Podcast, and we have not tipped the cap in a very, very long time to anybody. We've got to make it count. This is the first cap tippage of 2015.
Okay. I feel like I have a good one. It's one I'm personally excited over.
I haven't premeditated this, so I'm pretty much looking for names in my head right now.
That's how I normally do it, but I've had this one for 24 hours now.
Okay.
I want to tip the cap to Zachary Levi, known as TV's Chuck.
It's not Levi?
I always thought it was Levi, but every time I hear it on TV, it's Levy, so...
Oh, okay.
I apologize to Chuck if that's wrong. But, it was announced yesterday he was cast in the reboot of Heroes that's coming up.
Yeah.
And I was kind of on the fence of whether I wanted Heroes to come back, but knowing he's involved, I'm excited. So tip of the cap to you.
Right on. Now, he's someone that I always thought, why isn't he a bigger star than he is?
I agree with that.
Chuck was a cool show. I mean, it kind of like was always low in the ratings, but they kept it around because it had such a passionate like cult following.
Yeah, and those are the shows I seem to be drawn to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it ended kind of on like a quiet note.
Mm-hmm.
It just kind of went away.
Yeah. Well, an interesting story about him, he was actually cast in the first Thor movie.
Oh, really?
And then as Fandral, one of Thor's buddies. But Chuck got picked up for its final season, so he had to back out of the movie, so they gave it to this other actor. So when they started doing the sequel for Thor, this other actor's now on Once Upon a Time and couldn't do the sequel, so they gave the role to Chuck. So they gave it back to him for the sequel.
Huh. Yeah, because he was in that, wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Huh. I never even thought about that. And then he played the voice of, was it Flynn Rider on Tangled.
Yep.
Yeah. And did you know he's also a singer, musician?
That I did not know.
He is. He did a duet with Catherine McPhee, also of American Idol, on a song that was written by Carrie DiGuardi, also of American Idol.
Right.
But it was called Terrified, and it was on Catherine McPhee's last album when she tried to go blonde for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
So he did a duet with her on there, and also sang with Mandy Moore on the Tangled soundtrack. Mm-hmm. So yeah, he also is an aspiring musician.
I'll have to look into that.
Pretty good from what I've heard. And I'm going to go with Glee star Naya Rivera, because she called Justin Bieber a douchebag on The View yesterday. You know?
I was a little worried at first when you said Glee star, but you made it count.
Yeah. Yeah, because you hate Glee. And according to the ratings, everybody else does too this final season. But, you know, she was in the news earlier in the week because she made a comment that showering every day is like such a white people thing. And I don't know, like people were talking about her, and some liked that comment, some didn't like that comment. But that's neither here nor there, because then she comes back 2 days later and she's like, what did she say? She was talking about his numerous selfies with his shirt off. And she's like, why does he sit there and take all these selfies with his shirt off? I mean, he looks like such a little douchebag. She's like, go fix something around your house. It's so much hotter. You know? And I was like, yeah. I mean, not that I'm a big-time handyman, but I certainly don't do shirtless selfies. And I agree that Justin Bieber's a little douchebag. So she got some kudos from that comment.
I did see a list of celebrities that if you're going to get on Twitter are the most likely ones to follow you back and respond to you. He was actually about 7th or 8th on the list.
Really?
Yeah, because if you look, and it basically looked at the number of followers that the artist has and then how many people they follow, and it's like he follows one of every 324 fans he has, which doesn't sound that good, but you know, when you figure how many fans he's got, he was actually in the top 10 of this list.
So, because like I've blatantly called him a douchebag on Twitter, like, and used his @ handle or tag or
Right.
whatever his name is. And he's never responded to me
Mm-hmm.
because I always kind of hoped that he would be like, say something else, you know. And I'd say something else, and this is my fantasy here. And then he would say, you know, what's your address? I will fly there and we will fight. And then I would say, oh, I will direct message you my address right now. And then he would show up at my door and we would throw down. And I would send TMZ some photos and make $30,000 off of a picture of Bieber laying on my doorstep, very sad and beaten.
That would be fantastic.
Yeah, I think it would be awesome.
That would be worth any criminal charges that would come out of it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And in the same moment, you could probably get your legal fees paid via GoFundMe because now you're an American hero.
Oh, yeah.
And people would pay that gladly.
Maybe even Canada might
Yeah,
help.
I mean, you did what everybody wanted to do. So, Justin Bieber, if you hear this, let's fight, bro. I mean, come at me, bro. Come at me. And with that, we end episode 22 of the Culture Nerds Podcast. Any final comments?
No, I think we wrapped it up.
All right, and we tip the cap to you as always. See you next time.